Hi, I'm Laura. Welcome. We have a million things to talk about. So let's start at the very beginning. Okay, you've seen this in a million movie scenes, right? The baby is born, and everyone is sort of waiting, gasping until the baby cries. And in old movies, the doctor actually, whips them in the little behind a little bit to get them to cry. When I was a kid, I used to see those scenes and just be like, why are they hitting the baby? The bottom line is, probably our first act on earth out of the womb is to cry for help. So you can think of a lot of challenging behavior throughout the rest of our lives as an echo of that first cry. Okay, our cry is kind of designed, I think, on purpose to be, frankly, a little bit annoying. Listening to a baby's cry is distressing for us. It provokes a lot of distress. In other words, it serves its purpose, which is to elicit caregiving from our environment. There is no being lazy in the face of a baby's cry. We want and need to soothe, okay? Not just because we see a creature in distress, but also because we want to make that cry stop. As we grow, our cries for help begin to look a little bit different. We have a safety-seeking system, and we have deep safety-seeking instincts wired into us, okay? Most people are familiar with two of those, fight or flight. But in fact, there are six. One of them doesn't kick in until a little bit later. But fight, flight, freeze, fool, which is stealing and concealing, feed, and fuck. So that's a little bit later. But these are some of the things that we start to do when we become distressed. So a lot of really kind of obnoxious behavior, falls into these categories. Fight, right? Whether it's being aggressive or passive, fight, that the kind of fighting behaviors can be really hard to deal with for other people. They tend to cause a lot of problems and friction. Flight, avoiding, running away, not dealing with problems. It's a cry for help in its own way. Freeze, procrastinating, depression, not being really able to get yourself activated. You can see how this causes all kinds of problems in daily life. I just don't feel like doing this. That's kind of a freeze response. Fight, fight, freeze, fool. Not being honest with ourselves and being with others. Concealing important things. That can be denial, or it can be wearing a mask so that other people don't see the real us. But those behaviors can protect us, but they can also cause us a lot of problems for obvious reasons when we're not being our authentic selves. Feed, our tendency as humans to seek safety through compulsion and craving and collecting and consuming. Obviously we have a lot of negative potential fallouts, everything from binge eating disorder to addiction is part of our feed response, okay? When we are under stress or threat, that's kind of one of the things we do. And then the last one emerges in adulthood. A lot of us will do things, when we're under stress or threat, like suddenly we feel some kind of compulsion to look up our ex on Facebook, or drive by their house, or, we, God forbid, have an affair with our boss. You think that stuff doesn't happen under like really acute stress, but it actually does. Think about dude having a heart attack, and in the ambulance he's like grabbing his wife's boob and stuff like that. When we are confronted with the dilemma of death, with the problem of death, all kinds of sexual instincts and compulsions start kicking in. But all of these things, these troubling behaviors, which, by the way, can work for us, okay? Sometimes, like, take, for example, foolishness, stealing and concealing. It's one thing when we're embezzling money from our employer. It's another thing when we're hiding Anne Frank in the attic. That's still concealment. That's still a very deep, primitive response to danger, hiding ourselves. It's saved many lives, so there's an upside and a downside to all of these. But the bottom line is when you see these things, fight, flight, freeze, feed, and fuck. I'm going to say it again. Fight, flight, freeze, feed, and fuck. When they're dysfunctional, you want to think of them as a cry for help. Okay? Because when you think of them as a cry for help, you can do what we do for babies, which is work to restore safety. And usually you see those behaviors start to decrease. So that's what it is. Think of those challenging behaviors as just an echo of the first cry.